Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic. And as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. First to China, flooding and mudslides in southern China have killed at least 3 people. As China's Yangtze River basin entered its flood season, the upper reaches of the Three Gorges Dam are seeing the highest flood levels since 1940. Take a look. China's National Observatory issued a high alert for rainstorms across vast stretches of the country for the next 24 hours. Weather China has issued its highest warning for flooding and rain for the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River to Guizhou. The Qi River, which follows through the Qi River, which follows through the city, is seeing its heaviest flooding in 80 years, with the water level in some areas as high as 205 meters or 670 feet or 5 meters above the warning level, according to local authorities. More than 100,000 residents of Qijiang district have already been evacuated. Nearby, the water level at Three Gorges Dam, the world's biggest hydropower project, surged to 147 meters on Saturday, 2 meters above its flood control line. It put the number of dead at 3 and evacuations at more than 15,000. Seasonal flooding regularly strikes the lower regions of China's major river systems, particularly those of the Yangtze and the Pearl to the south. Authorities have already sought to mitigate the damage through the use of dams, particularly the massive Three Gorges structure on the Yangtze. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck southern Mexico on Tuesday, killing 6 people, sending hundreds fleeing from their homes and forcing the closure of a major state-owned oil refinery. Take a look. Hundreds of aftershocks were reported in the hours following the initial tremor, which was felt in Mexico City, some 700 kilometers distant from the epicenter in Crucecita in Oaxaca State. All the deaths occurred in Oaxaca, with the majority due to the collapse of buildings. A woman died near Crucecita, and 5 other people died in towns located within 150 kilometers of the epicenter, according to officials. The 7.4 quake struck at a depth of 23 kilometers, according to the USGS. An initial tsunami warning was later reversed. There was no damage reported to strategic infrastructure, including ports, airports, refineries, and hydroelectric plants, according to President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador in a video published on social media. Mexican Oil said its refinery in Salina Cruz in Oaxaca had been shut down as a precaution after a fire broke out at the plant that was immediately stifled. One of the dead from the earthquake was a worker at the refinery who was killed after falling off a high structure. Mexican Oil said other refineries in the state are operating as normal now. Rescuers were battling to reach a remote area of the rugged state amid reports that 15 workers had become trapped while constructing a highway. The quake also caused slight damage to 4 hospitals and a clinic, as well as to churches, markets, and other buildings, according to authorities. 6 hours after the quake, 447 aftershocks had been recorded across the region, the strongest at a magnitude of 4.6. The U.S. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center initially said hazardous waves as high as 3 meters could strike anywhere within 1,000 kilometers of the quake's epicenter, affecting the Pacific coast of Mexico and Central and South America. Now, that was called off. And columns of tanks and troops paraded through Red Square on Wednesday as President Vladimir Putin oversaw the Grand World War II commemorations to stir up patriotic fervor ahead of a vote on extending his rule. Take a look. Forced to postpone the country's traditional May 9 Victory Day celebrations by the coronavirus pandemic, President Putin rescheduled the parade. The new date wasn't chosen at random, as the first victory parade was held in the same location on June 24, 1945, according to authorities. In memory of this occasion, state-of-the-art hardware as well as historic World War II uniforms and weapons are on display along the Kremlin walls. This year's parade, marking 75 years since the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany, includes some 13,000 troops from 13 countries, as well as vintage equipment and the latest military hardware, showing off Russia's fighting capabilities. Chinese leader Xi Jinping and French President Emmanuel Macron had been scheduled before the pandemic to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Kremlin chief at the parade, in a testament to Russia's growing international influence under President Putin. Now, the Kremlin said that safety precautions were being taken in the lead up to the parade, but participants will not wear masks, and there's still a ban on mass gatherings in Moscow. Dozens of regions have decided not to go ahead with their own commemorative parades, citing concerns that a spike in cases could overwhelm underfunded and poorly equipped hospitals throughout the country. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the world owes the Soviet Union a debt of gratitude for its contribution to the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. Take a look.
Отстояв свою землю, продолжали сражаться, освободили от захватчиков государства Европы, положили конец страшной трагедии Холокоста, спасли от нацизма, от его смертоносной идеологии народ Германии. И невозможно даже представить, что стало бы с миром, не стань на его защиту Красная Армия. Наш долг — помнить об этом, помнить о том, что на советский народ пришлась основная тяжесть борьбы с нацизмом.
President Putin hailed the Soviet Union's role in World War II, praising the Red Army for liberating Europe, ending the Holocaust, and saving Germany from Nazism, adding it was, quote, our duty to keep this in mind. He also announced the new dates last month for both parade and vote, initially planned for April. This year's parade, marking 75 years since the Nazi defeat, showcased some 14,000 troops from 13 countries, as well as vintage equipment and the latest military hardware, showing off Russia's fighting capabilities. Officials say the date was chosen to coincide with the anniversary of the first post-war parade on Red Square, which saw Soviet troops throw down Nazi standards in front of the Lenin Mausoleum on June 24, 1945. In his 2 decades in office, President Putin has harnessed the legacy of the Soviet victory to boost patriotic sentiment and support for his government. Ahead of the parade, he slammed the West for insulting Russia by playing down the USSR's role in winning the war. Now, the Kremlin said safety precautions were being taken in the lead up to the parade, but participants were not wearing masks, and there is still a ban on mass gatherings in Moscow. Dozens of regions decided to drop their own commemorative parades, citing concerns that a spike in cases could overwhelm underfunded and poorly equipped hospitals throughout the country. Reflecting virus concerns, both Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin and Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov advised people to watch the procession on television rather than attend in person. The veterans were quarantined ahead of the event in sanatoriums. Precautions are also being taken for the constitutional vote, with early balloting starting on Thursday and continuing through to the official vote day on July 1st. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un has suspended plans for military actions against the South. State media reported on Wednesday in an apparent sudden dialing down of tensions after Pyongyang blew up a liaison office. In recent weeks, Pyongyang has issued a series of vitriolic condemnations of Seoul over anti-North leaflets, which defectors based in South Korea send across the border, usually attached to balloons or floated in bottles. Last week, it blew up a liaison office on its side of the border. that symbolized inter-Korean rapprochement, while its military said it would take multiple measures against the South. Now, the moves included re-entering areas of the North that it had withdrawn from as part of inter-Korean projects, restoring guard posts in the demilitarized zone that forms the border, and stepping up exercises. But the North's official Korean Central News Agency said Kim on Tuesday presided over a Central Military Commission preliminary meeting that suspended the military action plans against the South. The North also began removing loudspeakers on Wednesday from border areas, which they had started setting up just 2 days ago to broadcast anti-South propaganda, according to South Korea's Yonhap News Agency, citing unnamed sources. In addition, Pyongyang's propaganda outlets deleted online articles critical of South Korea, according to Seoul's Unification Ministry, which handles relations with the North. Now, the apparently conciliatory moves by Pyongyang are unusual and come after analysts said it was seeking to manufacture a crisis on the peninsula in an effort to extract concessions. Take a look.
They've been under sanctions since 2016, and these are particularly tight economic sanctions, which hurt quite a bit from the United Nations Security Council. That has caused a significant amount of pain for North Korea. They haven't had any luck getting these sanctions lifted, getting these sanctions abrogated. And so there's a certain degree of frustration amongst the North that if we are nice, if we play nice, it's not working. So it's time to show how nasty we can be. They are kind of upset, or they're kind of angry that South Korea has not proven effective as a facilitator with the United States, and has not been successful in exerting any interest, any influence on Washington to get these sanctions lifted. So because of all this, North Korea feels that it is time to revert to its traditional pattern of, how would I say this, coercive antagonistic diplomacy, where they show a very disagreeable and a very belligerent face to begin with. Then at some point in time, when they feel that it is to their benefit, then they will start to ease off on the antagonism or on the provocations. It conforms with with previous cycles of North Korean antagonism and diplomacy. They always go through a Jekyll and Hyde phase, whereby on one hand they can be very negotiable, on the other hand they can be very, very antagonistic and very, very belligerent.
In the capitals of the two Koreas, rival museums offer radically different accounts of the same conflict, a war launched to unify the peninsula that now defines its division. Take a look.
북한은 6.25 전쟁을 자기 자신들의 말로 조국 해방 전쟁이라 표현하고 있습니다. 예컨대 38선 이남의 남한이 미국의 식민지였고 북한은 그거에 대한 해방을 위하여 전쟁을 일으켰다. 즉 정의로운 전쟁이었다는 걸 주장하기 위해서 그 6.25 전쟁의 개전의 이야기들을 그런 식으로 지어낸 것인데, 실상은 북한이 공산 정권 하에서 한반도 전체를 통일시키기 위한 노력으로서 그들이 순전한 야망으로서 전쟁을 시작한 것이었기 때문에
백년 숙적, 100년 동안의 축적이며 지금도 제국주의자들과 아야고들 이가 갈립니다. 하나를 이고 살 수 없는, 같이 살 수 없는 그런 인종이라는 거, 미제가.
To other news now, a plane crash which killed 97 people in Pakistan last month was because of human error by the pilot and air traffic control, according to an initial report into the disaster released on Wednesday. A plane crash which killed 97 people in Pakistan last month was because of human error by the pilots who were discussing the coronavirus crisis during the landing. That is according to the initial report. The Pakistan International Airlines, or PIA, plane crashed into a crowded residential area on May 22nd after both engines failed as it approached Karachi airport, killing all but 2 people on board. The pilot as well as the air traffic controller didn't follow the standard rules, said Ghulam Sarwar Khan, the country's aviation minister, announcing the findings in parliament. He said the pilots had been discussing the deadly virus as they attempted to land the Airbus A320 and had disengaged the craft's autopilot. Mr. Khan said, quote, the pilot and co-pilot were not focused, and throughout they were having a conversation about the coronavirus. The virus was on their minds, their families were affected, and they were having a discussion about it, unquote. The report found the plane was flying at more than twice the altitude it should have been when it approached the runway without the landing gear down. Standard flight operating procedures were then ignored by the pilots and the air traffic controller, resulting in an aborted landing that heavily damaged the plane's engines. The aircraft went down as it attempted a second landing, crashing into a residential area near the airport. The investigation team, which included officials from the French government and the aviation industry, analyzed cockpit data and voice recorders. The full report is expected to be released at the end of the year, with advanced analysis of the aircraft wreckage still ongoing. The minister also said the plane was 100% fit for flying. There was no technical fault. Eagle News will be right back. Welcome back. The government would look into the rise in coronavirus disease or COVID-19 cases in Leyte after the return of some overseas Filipino workers and locally stranded individuals there, according to Interior Secretary Eduardo Año. Now, the Interior Secretary said they will talk to local government officials on what the national government could do to respond to the health crisis. He also said that protocols such as a mandatory 14-day quarantine should be implemented for the returning OFWs and LSIS. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said some of the LSIS sneak into the province without undergoing the protocol. COVID-19 cases in Eastern Visayas have increased nearly 10 times in the past 3 weeks, raising concern over depleting resources to combat the pandemic in the region. From 40 cases on June 1, the number surged to 396 as of June 21. Eastern Visayas consists of the provinces of Leyte, Southern Leyte, Samar, Northern Samar, Eastern Samar, and Biliran. Meanwhile, the Interior Secretary said more security forces would be deployed in Cebu City, which has been reverted to the Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ. Now, these barangays are Mambaling, Cebu City Jail area, Luz Labangon, Suba, Camputhao, Tejero, Sambagtu, Dulho Fatima, and Basak San Nicolas. The Philippine National Police said 518 police officers have tested positive for the coronavirus disease or COVID-19. Data from the PNP Health Service as of Tuesday night showed COVID-19 fatalities in the police force stands at 9, 4 of whom were from Central Visayas. The latest fatality is a 45-year-old police officer from Cebu who was assigned at the Regional Office 7 or Central Visayas. He is the 4th consecutive case of recent police fatalities from the region. PNP Chief General Archie Gamboa condoled with the family of the police frontliner. He said, "We're doing our best to provide immediate medical attention to our police patients and to help keep our frontliners safe." He said this in a statement. Also in the statement, he noted that the confirmed COVID-19 cases in the PNP represent roughly 1.6% of the total of 31,825 COVID-19 cases recorded nationwide by the Department of Health as of Tuesday. Meanwhile, 313 PNP patients have recovered, while 160 personnel remain in quarantine facilities, 14 personnel are under home quarantine, and 22 patients are undergoing treatment in medical facilities. At least 223 police officers in Peru have died after contracting the coronavirus while enforcing one of South America's longest lockdowns, according to the Interior Ministry on Tuesday. The death toll is 30% higher than 2 weeks ago when the ministry announced 170 officers had died and just under 10,000 were infected of a total force of 130,000. Peru is the second worst hit country in Latin America after Brazil, with more than 257,000 cases and 9,000 deaths. Interior Minister General Gaston Rodriguez told a virtual press conference the force would receive a boost in numbers in August when 5,000 police cadets graduate. Since the government introduced a quarantine in March, around 6,000 police who had contracted the disease had recovered and were back in service. Latin America and the Caribbean on Tuesday surpassed 100,000 coronavirus deaths, more than half of them in Brazil, according to an AFP count based on official figures. The pandemic is accelerating across the region, which now has a total of 2.1 million cases, with Brazil, Mexico, Peru, and Chile the most affected countries. Brazil has the second highest COVID-19 death toll in the world after the U.S. at more than 52,640 fatalities out of 1,145,906 confirmed cases. Mexico, also heavily hit by the virus, was struck Tuesday by a powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake, and the quake hit as the country of 127 million people recorded its highest number of cases in a 24-hour period, with 6,288 new infections, according to the Ministry of Health. Peru, meanwhile, exceeded 260,000 coronavirus cases as it marked 100 days under mandatory lockdown and received a donation of 250 ventilators from the U.S. Its neighbor to the north, Colombia, extended its quarantine Tuesday until July 15 as its coronavirus cases continue to climb. The country has registered 2,404 deaths out of more than 73,500 cases. And British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced on Tuesday that coronavirus lockdown restrictions will ease in England from July 4. Joining us live from England is Graham Thomas. Hello, Graham.
Good evening, Alma.
Good
I trust
evening.
you're well.
Doing good.
So Britain's coronavirus. I'm glad to hear. Britain's coronavirus outbreak has been the deadliest in Europe, but stay-at-home orders imposed in late March are now slowly being eased as the infection rates fall. The country has so far avoided the catastrophe of the second peak of infection, and people can soon start to see more of their friends and family, the government said on Monday. The details have been announced. Let's listen in.
I will not. On the 16th of April, we set out our 5 tests for adjusting the lockdown, and since then they have guided our path. At every stage, we've diligently assessed our progress against these 5 tests before making changes, and it has meant that we have so far avoided the catastrophe of a second peak of infection that could have overwhelmed the NHS and meant so many more lives lost. After a long period of asking you, the British public, to follow very strict and complex rules to bring coronavirus under control, we can now make life easier for people to see more of their friends and family and to help businesses get back on their feet and people back into jobs. From the 4th of July, the following premises will be allowed to reopen provided they are COVID secure: hotels, bed and breakfast and self-contained holiday accommodation, caravan parks and campsites, places of worship and libraries, restaurants and cafes, bars, pubs, social clubs, cinemas and bingo halls, museums and galleries, hair salons and barbers, outdoor playgrounds and outdoor gyms. Of course, the fight is far from over. This is a nasty virus still that wants to take advantage of our carelessness. There will be, I'm afraid, there will be local outbreaks. And I must tell you that if the virus were to begin to run out of control, I will not hesitate to put on the handbrake and reverse some of these changes.
The further easing of coronavirus restrictions in England from July 4 are being done as part of plans to kickstart hospitality, culture, and tourism. 2 separate households will also be allowed to meet up indoors for the first time since March. Cinemas, museums, and galleries in England will be asked to introduce social distancing measures, including one-way systems, spaced queuing, increased ventilation, and pre-booked tickets, a Downing Street source said. Today, we can say that our long national hibernation is beginning to come to the end, he told Parliament, calling the lifting of restrictions a return to a sense of normality. After the toughest restrictions in peacetime history, we're now able to make life easier for people to see more of their friends and family and help businesses to get back on their feet and get people back into work, he told lawmakers. Britain has been one of the worst hit countries by the global pandemic, with the official death toll among people who have tested positive for COVID-19 standing at almost 43,000. The government hopes the relaxing of rules will help the economy begin to recover from the impact of the virus lockdown, with predictions of recession, heavy losses, and job cuts. But Johnson warned that the restrictions would be reimposed if necessary. We will not hesitate to apply the brakes and reintroduce restrictions if required, he said. The death toll among people who tested positive for COVID-19 rose by 15 to 42,647 on Sunday, the lowest daily increase since March the 15th, although there is always a lag in reported deaths over the weekend. Separate official data, including suspected coronavirus deaths, put the toll at 51,804 to June 5. A total of 958 people tested positive in the 24 hours to Monday morning, and Health Secretary Matt Hancock said only 1 in 1,700 people now have the virus, down from 1 in 400 a month ago. On Monday, Hancock announced plans to ease restrictions on 2.2 million people in England classed as clinically extremely vulnerable. They have been asked to avoid all social contact, but from July 6 will be allowed to meet outside in groups as big as 6. From 1st of August, the entire shielding program will be paused, although officials warned it could be restarted if the outbreak worsens in the winter. Back to you, Alma.
Okay, so Graham, with the opening of more businesses, did the government give any guidance on how businesses there in England can safely reopen?
Yes, Alma, there are many updated guidelines issued on how hair salons, hotels, and other businesses in England can safely restart trading again. According to the BBC, customers will be asked to book in advance, order online or through apps, and not lean on counters. There's also advice on reconfiguring seating, minimizing self-service, and cancel live acts and stagger arrivals. The guidelines also say businesses should conduct a COVID-19 risk assessment to make sure their workplace is safe, and which should be shared on their website, and also establish cleaning and hygiene procedures. The guidance for close contact services such as hairdressers says staff should wear a visor if it's not possible to maintain distance, and customers should also be separated from each other by screens. In places like restaurants, hotels, and hairdressers are asked to keep a temporary record of customers and visitors for 21 days to support in the test and trace system. And pubs and restaurants should keep music low to avoid people having to shout, as this increases the risk of transmitting tiny drops in the air, known as aerosols. And customers will also be encouraged to order food and drink to their tables through a smartphone app. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much for your update there in England. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Alma. I'm Graham Thomas reporting for EBC News from the United Kingdom. We live in interesting times.
And the coronavirus infections are surging across large parts of the United States, according to the top U.S. infectious disease expert. As the death toll in Latin America passed 100,000, the developments highlighted how far away the world remains from ending the pandemic, 6 months into a crisis that has claimed nearly 500,000 lives and devastated the global economy. Let's listen in.
Now, the next couple of weeks are going to be critical in our ability to address those surgings that we're seeing in Florida, in Texas, in Arizona, and in other states. They're not the only ones that are having a difficulty. Bottom line, Mr. Chairman, it's a mixed bag. Some good and some now we have a problem with. If you look at how we've been hit badly. I mean, anybody who looks at the numbers, we've had now over 120,000 deaths and we've had 2.5 million infections. So it's a serious situation.
The United States has already recorded more deaths than any other nation, with nearly 800 more fatalities on Tuesday, taking its toll past 121,000. With the parts of the U.S. unable to contain the pandemic, the European Union was considering blocking U.S. travelers as it reopens its borders to tourism. That was reported by the New York Times. Many states have largely lifted lockdown measures, and New York, the country's epicenter for the pandemic, took a big step on Monday by allowing non-essential businesses to reopen. But some 20 states, primarily in the South and West, have seen a rebound in infections. Now, U.S. disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci told Congress that President Trump never told him or other officials to curb coronavirus testing, essentially contradicting the president who told supporters he had urged such a slowdown. Take a look.
I, as a member of the task force, and my colleagues on the task force, to my knowledge, I know for sure, but to my knowledge, none of us have ever been told to slow down on testing. That just is a fact. In fact, we will be doing more testing.
President Trump raised alarm bells Saturday when he told a Tulsa campaign rally where most attendees were not wearing masks or following social distancing guidelines that testing is a double-edged sword and that he had told his experts to slow the testing down. Now, President Trump held a rally in Phoenix, Arizona, and said he wants to test after his controversial comments that he had urged health officials to slow down the testing. Take a look.
So then they'll say, We have more cases. Now, look, we want to do testing. We want to do everything. But they use it to make us look bad. Because of it, our mortality rate is so low. It's so great what's happened. So we want to test.
Former President Barack Obama helped raise $7.6 million for White House hopeful Joe Biden during a Tuesday virtual fundraiser where the former president said a great awakening among Americans could help defeat President Trump in November's election. The two-term Democrat proved a major draw in his first virtual, even with former Vice President Joe Biden since endorsing his presidential bid, bringing in 175,000 online attendees, whose donations marked a single event record for Biden this cycle. Take a look.
Chipping in whatever you've been able to do, because your support, we've raised a remarkable $7.6 million. This campaign is powered by grassroots donors like you, and it's especially in these tough times, your support means everything.
You're all feeling a sense of urgency, the same kind of urgency that I'm feeling right now, that Michelle's feeling, that so many of us feel as we look at the news and we talk to our friends and neighbors and those who are hurting. And I am here to say that help is on the way if we do the work, because there's nobody that I trust more to be able to heal this country and get it back on track than my dear friend Joe Biden. There is a great awakening going on around the country, particularly among younger people who are saying not only are they fed up with the shambolic, disorganized, mean-spirited approach to governance that we've seen over the last couple of years, but more than that, are eager to take on some of the core challenges that have been facing this country for centuries.
And today he's with Obama, President Obama. It only took him how long? A year and a half to endorse him? What did it take, a year and a half to endorse him? Even after he won, he didn't endorse him for a long time.
Eagle News will be right back.
Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten. Sie wertschätzen.
A U.S. court has upheld the verdict that talcum powder sold by Johnson & Johnson caused ovarian cancer and ordered the pharmaceutical giant to pay $2.1 billion US dollars in damages. The decision by the Missouri Court of Appeals cut by more than half the $4.4 billion a jury had awarded 22 people in 2018. The court agreed that some of the plaintiffs should not have been included in the case as they were from outside the state. But the Tuesday decision upheld the awarding of damages for the company knowingly selling products that contained asbestos to consumers. The judgment said, quote, "It is impossible to place monetary value on the physical, mental, and emotional anguish plaintiffs suffered because of their injury caused by defendants." A spokeswoman for Johnson & Johnson said the company would appeal the decision in the Supreme Court of Missouri, according to the Wall Street Journal. Johnson & Johnson has faced thousands of lawsuits across the U.S., alleging it failed to warn consumers of the risk of cancer from asbestos in its talc-based products. Indonesian app giant Gojek said it'll cut hundreds of jobs and ditch at-home massage and cleaning services as the global pandemic slashes down for face-to-face businesses after Singapore-based rival Grab also announced layoffs. Starting as a ride-hailing service in 2010, Gojek launched an app 5 years later with a wide range of offerings, including deliveries, takeaway food, and financial services that could be offered via smartphone. The company attracted investments from tech giants, including Google, Facebook, and Tencent. But on Tuesday, it said it would cut 430 posts, or about 9% of its full-time staff, as it cancels massage, house cleaning, and GoFood festivals, which supplies vending space for food sellers. However, Gojek said its logistics and grocery delivery businesses had surged since the pandemic hit. The firm, which claims some 170 million users in Indonesia and has expanded to other Southeast Asian markets, employs freelancers for many of its services, including ride-hailing drivers. Now, it didn't respond to requests for comment on how many of its freelance staff would be affected by the cuts. Last week, rival Grab announced that it would dismiss 360 employers, or about 5% of its full-time workforce. In May, U.S.-based ride-sharing giant Uber said it was slashing a quarter of its global workforce, about 3,000 employees, and trimming investment to survive the financial hit to its businesses from the disease crisis. In other news, Swiss acrobats performed during the Glacier 3000 Air Show, an event marking the reopening of the alpine facilities following the COVID-19 lockdown. Take a look.
Why I do that, I'm an artist, a performer, and I like the extreme stuff. And I make many things before, and I will stop to make many things more. So that's my life. That's pictures, and I think it's good for everybody. We don't give up and keep thinking positive for the future. It's a hard time now, but I think we'll come better also. The bicycle never was done on a cable car. And I think that's the highest bicycle driving on a cable car, and the deepness is also a record with... Sure. I mean, this is the point. We go further and higher and make other stuff. That's the thing what I do. I show stuff nobody did before. And for sure, new ideas is in the head now, and you can go further and further. And my next project, it's like I go on the hot air balloon. I want to try 5,000 meters on the knees.
Circus performances have been canceled around the world due to the coronavirus pandemic, but one acrobat has kept this dream alive with his death-defying Wheel of Death stunt in the Swiss Alps. Footage shows Ramon Cathriner dressed in a black suit and bow tie as he climbs onto the apparatus of choice, a 30-foot revolving metal pendulum on the edge of a mountain. Freddie Knock, meanwhile, broke 3 records, balancing for 40 meters on a slope of more than 39.1 degrees, riding a bike on a cable car for 367 meters, and walking blindfolded on the same cable for 151.1 meters, according to the organizers. Now, the resort would usually be packed with visitors were it not for the pandemic. Now, Knock is well known for his record-breaking tightrope stunts. In 2015, he broke the Guinness World Record for the highest tightrope walk. An Aid to Humanity activity of the Iglesia Ni Cristo gives care packages to seniors living in Winnipeg. Kathleen May Pangan reports.
The Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, led through the leadership of their Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, continues to love and care for their people in need during these times of the COVID-19 virus. They are doing these acts of kindness non-stop in different places of the world. The Aid to Humanity outreach program of the Iglesia ni Cristo on different occasions in the past here in Winnipeg was witnessed by some of the government officials in Manitoba, Canada.
Well, I've known that INC, that they have the capacity to do aid to humanity on a large scale. Like I've heard and I've seen that you've done these kinds of outreach programs to communities that are experiencing poverty. That you've even been able to do like 4,000, like it's in the thousands, the care packages that you're able to provide. And as the MLA here, I was hoping to provide care packages similar to that to this building here, low-income seniors, and it had about 100 residents. And the partners that I've been working with, they couldn't handle the 100 number, and I knew that INC could handle it. I think it's so important to continue to do the work of the church that you guys are doing, because you have to still keep building those relationships with people. You still have to be showing compassion even more at this time, and you have to show the leadership that this is an important thing to do, and hopefully others will follow that example. So I'm really, really proud of INC for your continuing commitment to building and growing the community here in Manitoba. Thank you very much to Brother Sidney Santos, our district minister here in Manitoba, and to your executive minister, Minister Edward V. Manalo.
Now, one of the things that our constituency has is we have a problem with food security. That just means that people just don't get enough to eat, not enough healthy foods. So, especially during this time that we have this coronavirus out, we have a lot of seniors that live in this building here that have mobility issues, and on top of that, are experiencing poverty. So, your building has about 100 units. And I've been going around to different places in our community to try to get folks to bring food to different people, especially for seniors and children. But I wasn't able to serve this building yet because of the number of units that you guys have. So I was able to reach out to this wonderful church group called INC. And these folks are here with us today. This is their district minister, Brother Sidney Santos. So thank you so much, Brother Sidney. And there are other ministers here and other church members here, but obviously not all of them can come. And INC is a very, very big church. They're very coordinated, very organized, and they have a very good mission of community outreach. And because of them, we were able to organize to be able to have all this food brought to your building. And I have had their commitment that this is not the first time that they will be reaching out to the people in this building. Because as the MLA here, I've been able to go to the other buildings where other people are, but with the partners that I have, they can only do maybe 30 batches of food, but not 100. But INC can. So I would like to thank the executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, because this is part of his initiative. And again, Brother Sidney Santos and all the ministers that are here, thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you so much for your commitment to the community. I appreciate from the bottom of my heart, and I know that residents here at 515 Elgin also feel the same. Isn't that right, guys?
These acts of compassion and kindness to the people in need was recognized by all ruling government officials in Manitoba in one of their meetings on the legislative on October 25, 2018. I am witnessing at this very moment another AT Humanity activity of the Iglesia ni Cristo by giving care packages to seniors living here in 515 Elgin Avenue. Many of these seniors are disabled and all of them receive income assistance from the government.
Thank you to the Executive Minister of INC.
We'd like to thank the INC for the great donation that they have given us.
We would like to thank our Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, for allowing us to participate in this activity. Through your leadership po and your guidance, we were once again able to help our fellow men, and we are also truly thankful po for this opportunity. We will forever remain united with you po, and we thank you so much for your love to all of us. And we have extended that po to the community here in Manitoba. Once again po, thank you so much. We love you so very much po, and we will always remain loyal and united with you.
Reporting for Eagle News, I'm Kathleen May Pangan. We live in interesting times.
And before we close, we leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.